everybody, welcome back to the Psychedelic Cherry. I'm May, this is Rusty. So stick around, we're going to get back to the how to make your fuzzy companion for a petal enclosure, part 2.
Part 2. Now that we have all the details sculpted, it's time to focus our attention on this tongue. Like I said before, this one's going to have to be cast in silicone so that you can actually stomp down onto the foot switch. To do that, we're going to make a mold with alginate and let that harden while we continue with the rest of the petal. So let's get back to the workbench. Alright, so we're back at the workbench here, and we've got our setup here with the materials we need to make the mold, which is a scrap piece of cardboard box that we can easily cut away when we're done. Got a big bag of alginate, which is a non-toxic, one-time use mold making material. It is not going to last for multiple attempts, but that's okay. We just need to make one of these guys. I've got a jar of water. Already have 2 cups of water measured out, so we're going to need to measure out 1 3/4 cups of alginate, and we'll just go ahead and mix it and pour it from that jar. I've also got the hot glue gun here heating up so that I can seal the tongue into the bottom of the box here. That way, when the alginate sets and we peel it away, we're left with a negative, basically, so we can put the silicone in from the top. And then also that'll give us the ability to put a plug in the silicone to prevent it from to preserve this cavity that goes over the foot switch. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get started. Okay, so it's getting a little later in the day, and we've got our finished mold here. Hopefully it turned out really well. It looks like it's cured up already. This is of the tongue, and instead of silicone, I've decided to go ahead and use some liquid latex rubber that I had laying around from a previous project. It hardens up really well, and I should be able to tint it just like I would with the silicone. So I'm going to just go ahead and try and do that. Let's get back to the bench. Alright, so here we have our box mold. Underneath all of that is the tongue, so we're going to have to use this utility knife to unwrap it and flip it out, remove the original positive. I've got some craft paint here and some liquid latex to do a casting of that. The latex will also be able to haul out a cavity after it's cured to get more of an exact fit for this, rather than having to make a plug or some other stand-in. I've also got just a little dish lined with some plastic. I'm going to do the mixing of the paint and the latex in this, and then use it kind of as a piping bag to make sure that I am able to squeeze every last bit of it out and fill it from the bottom up. Also got some, popsicle sticks here to mix and to help smooth it out if I need to. Let's get started. Okay, so while the tongue is curing, we're just going to go ahead and move on to making the fuzzy companion fuzzy using some of this orange fur fabric that we found for a different project. and we're going to start putting it directly onto our re-stripped enclosure. So let's get back to work. All right, so here we are back at the workbench. We've taken everything off the enclosure because we're going to be basically upholstering it, and we want it to be as clean as possible. We don't want to get any of the adhesive onto the components. As far as tools, we're going to use a ruler to go ahead and measure out the dimensions of the enclosure so that we can cut the fabric to the right size. The fabric works best if you cut it from the back side of it with a very sharp utility knife. That way you don't have to cut all the way through the long hair. Like you would imagine if you're giving a haircut, you want to cut from the base, not from the top, so you don't end up with a bowl cut for your shaggy little guy. As far as adhesive, we're going to go ahead and use some contact cement. A little bit of this goes a long way. In fact, overusing it will make it less effective. I already did some cutting off screen because it's a little difficult to work with the fabric in this workspace. But anyway, I just cut these based on the outside perimeter. I went ahead and left an additional 1/2 inch so I can cut from the back after I've got everything down. I'm going to glue around from the back forward. I want the fur to kind of go outwards around the face, so I've cut 4 different pieces to go in the different directions. And again, I left plenty of overhang so that I can trim the excess off. The idea is that the hair is going to kind of blend into each other from the top down, so we build from the bottom up. After that, it's basically just finishing the clay pieces or the polymer pieces and getting them attached and finished. So let's get back to work.
It wouldn't be so nice to be our sacrifice. You prefer your love in the form of an altarpiece.
Everybody, I lost a little bit of footage from the last clip, so I've had to make some adjustments to the light, so I'm not quite as illuminated. Turns out that LED lights can overheat a camera phone. But anyway, we've got our enclosure upholstered with the orange costume fur. So now we're going to grab our brushes and some craft paint and a wash, and we're going to start putting the color detail and finishing work on the sculpted pieces. So let's get back to the workbench. All right, so here we are back at the workstation. I've gone ahead and cleaned up a little bit to get as much dust and stuff as possible out of the way. I've also wiped them down with just a little bit of a damp cloth to clean off any grease and debris before we start using paint. I'm just using cheap acrylic craft paint to do a little bit of wet coat for the eye and then different colors of dry coat. Dry brush technique to pull out some of the detail work in the teeth, the lips, the iris, the horn texture, the orifice texture, etc. After that, I'll be using a wash that basically has a I think it's called a resistor that basically makes the fluid less cohesive and allows the tint to flow into the deep spaces, so it's a way of kind of adding low light back into it. And then I'm finally going to use a little bit of a clear matte acrylic sealer to protect everything while not really adding a lot of gloss to it, because I may decide to use some hot glue and another wash or so to do some like spit or mucus kind of stuff. We'll see. Anyway, everything's going great so far. This is the second to last step, so hope you guys are enjoying it so far.
Emotional.
right, everyone. It's been quite a trip so far, and we've come to the last step, and that is taking our upholstered enclosure and our sculpted pieces and our other electronic components and combining the whole thing to finish the furry little companion. So let's get back to the workbench and finish this project out. All right, so here we are at the workbench again, and just got our setup ready. We've got our enclosure with fabric on it. We've got our electronic components. These are going to need to go on before we affix the permanently attached components of the sculpture to the to the rest of the enclosure. The knobs, the horns, and these orifices for the input and output jacks, as well as the DC input port, those actually are just friction fit to the actual threaded nuts that will, or in this case the port itself, to fit itself in. So those will be inherently removable. However, the eyepiece and upper jaw, as well as the lower jaw, will be permanently bonded to the enclosure itself using some epoxy. This 2-part epoxy has a work time of about a minute, so we're going to be mixing up one batch at a time, just using a popsicle stick to stir it here on this tin foil, and then using a sacrificial brush to brush the back of it before fitting it on there. The silicone or the latex tongue is still curing, so I'm going to use this just as a placeholder to make sure that I have the lower jaw and upper jaw appropriately spaced when I fix them. I'm really excited. It's always great to see all the components come together, although I know it's going to be tricky to get these pots and these jacks through all this fuzz, but cross my fingers, wish me luck.
What is it in your metal gardens? Not worth your rolling in the mud. Have you forgotten nature's bargain? Or is there poison in your blood? Now can you follow without hunting?
So, are we gonna see it?
Well, I've got something to show you.
Okay, let me see it. Ah, that's amazing. Whoa, look at that. Can you see it? That looks so good. We should plug it in. Let's plug it in.
All right.
All right, you want to grab that end? I'll grab this end.
Insert into orifice.
Ah! It works!
Yes, it's alive.
Yeah, we both went for that at the same time. But isn't that cool? You just push the tongue to turn it on and off. And then, will you unplug that for a second? These are the knobs. And of course, I don't have the back on this right now, but these beautiful orifices on each side and on the top. Beautiful.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed Rusty's first installment of a little DIY tutorial here. How to make a little creature into a pedal enclosure. I'm calling it a fuzzy companion as opposed to a companion fuzz.
Yeah, you could put it on a companion fuzz and then it'd be a fuzzy companion for your companion fuzz.
Exactly. Although I think right now we have
A Mosrite Fuzzrite.
a Mosrite Fuzzrite.
And we've been talking about it, and Rusty has been kind enough to agree to let us give this guy away to one of you. So one lucky subscriber is going to get this beautiful fuzzy companion with the Mosrite Fuzzrite inside of it. So you'll have a fuzz pedal inside of it. And we're going to send it to one lucky winner when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So how you can enter is simply to, if you haven't subscribed already, hit subscribe and leave a comment in this video. And if you're already a subscriber, you can enter too. Just leave a comment in this video. It doesn't have to be about the contest. It can be about whatever you like. But leave a comment just to let us know you're entering.
And anyone who enters from now until the time that we hit 1,000 subscribers.
1,000, yeah. Please do subscribe and stick around for more awesome music-related content from the Psychedelic Cherry.
Oh yeah, and next project in Rusty's workshop will be a DIY pirate radio.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Completely, mostly legally?
Completely.
Yeah, let's go with that. All right, thanks. Bye, everybody.